There was a time in the not-too-distant past where every tech company out there wanted to create their own portable MP3 music player. If I've already lost you, ask your parents what an MP3 is, and they'll likely launch into a diatribe about downloading a song from a disreputable program that may or may not have actually been the song you wanted. But I digress. There was a point where every company wanted in on the action with their own portable player. While there were some solid efforts, most of the also-ran MP3 players ended up failing, with a few lingering on as oddities and bargain bin options for those who couldn't afford an iPod. Of course, the widespread adoption of the touchscreen cell phone combined with improved storage made the entire effort moot. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and squirrels, cephalopods and arachnids, the Cicada is our also-ran MP3 player of battle mechs. Now, this isn't going to be one of those videos where I just talk smack for a half hour and then get angry comments for the next few years, as I think the Cicada has some really strong elements. It's not a bad mech so much as one that is overshadowed by better options and stronger implementation of technology. Though many mech warriors who encounter an enemy Cicada on the battlefield may breathe a sigh of relief, in the act of underestimation there exists opportunity. Let's dig into this gawky 40-tonner and see what it can do. "Look, kid," she said, a softer, out-of-character note creeping into her tone. "You're a pretty hot sim pilot, no lie. And by just watching you in field exercises, I can tell you can back that up when you're behind the sticks of your Cicada. But you're also young and dumb, so I'm going to share some hard-earned life wisdom with you. Know who your family is, and don't let us down. No one takes priority over the Red Stable crew. No one," she reiterated, her palm pounding his chest for emphasis. Acceptable Losses, Shrapnel Number 13, by Adam Neff. When Hartford Co. Industries decided to toss their hat into the ring of battlemech development, they at least had some understanding of the technical challenges involved. Originally a parts producer, including communications and targeting and tracking systems, Hartford Co.'s execs saw the opportunity that the burgeoning battlemech market offered and just couldn't resist. With their company headquarters on Bryant within the Terran hegemony, they stood a good chance of getting their foot in the door for a lucrative Star League Defense Force contract. Of course, they had to actually come up with a design first, and with the available mission profiles, they decided there was room for a 40-ton scouting mech that could keep pace with lighter battlemechs while still being better armored and more powerful. The CDA-2A Cicada project was the noble first effort, and Hartford went all in to meet and greet with SLDF representatives to tout the merits of their new battlemech. Constructed from an in-house built Hartford 300 frame wrapped around a 320 Pitman Fusion engine, the Cicada's primary defensive strategy was to move quickly and not be around to absorb return fire. The 129 km/h top speed placed the Cicada in the top tier of speedy battlemechs, though since opportunity cost spares no one, this was paid for with an engine that took up 22.5 tons or roughly 56% of the mech's overall mass. With a gyro cockpit and 4 tons of Star Slab standard plate armor, that left a grand total of 2.5 tons of mass for weaponry. And opportunity cost hits like a dump truck driving through a nitroglycerin factory. Without the benefit of fancy mass-saving features like extra light engines or endosteel, the offensive capabilities for the Cicada were limited. 2 Magna medium lasers split between the side torsos provided the main punch, though if close, the center torso Magna 200 small laser could be brought to bear. Because we're nothing if not endlessly optimistic around here, the bright side of this loadout was the Cicada didn't have to worry about heat generation. Running at top speed while alpha striking did not tax the 10 single heatsinks. The alpha strike damage of 13 isn't that impressive for a 40-ton battlemech, but it wasn't intended to compete in that arena. Hartford Co. intended for the Cicada to compete against light mechs like the Locust for scouting duties. Though the two mechs tied in both speed and armor coverage, the Cicada did technically have the capability to outdamage Locust variants like the 1V. We're looking on the bright side here, people. Stay with me. Though both battlemechs shared the no arms negative quirk, Team Cicada could boast about their mech having a more comfortable cockpit and stronger leg assemblies that could theoretically take a little bit more stress. The Cicada's internal leg structure could absorb 10 points of damage, while the Locusts could only take 4. The Locust camp could also parry by pointing out that the Locust benefited from being compact and having a narrow, low profile. We resorted to diving into quirks here, but I'm not sure there's a clear winner or even if it's fair to judge a 20-ton mech against a 40 and calling it lacking. If anything, the Cicada needed to present a stronger case. Nevertheless, the Cicada project was greenlit after a modest contract was signed with the SLDF. The first mechs skittered off the assembly lines in 2740 and were shipped out to Star League units to complement the large number of Locusts in recon roles. It was during these initial deployments that a trump card was discovered in the heavier Cicada. In a situation where the mech was forced to kick something, the Cicada could do twice as much damage as the Locust. While we are talking about 8 damage instead of 4, the little things matter here. As with many new battlemech designs, there were some issues with novel parts. In the case of the Cicada 2As, the in-house produced heatsinks suffered from degrading performance over time, like a lithium-ion laptop battery from the early 2000s. Some reports described the heatsinks operating at just 60% capacity before the overheating issues for the mech forced an extensive repair and replacement with aftermarket parts. While not devastating, this issue did contribute to fewer Cicadas surviving through the succession wars. I was feeling pretty unsteady on my feet in any case, and running at full speed would have been worse. The ground was trembling constantly now, one long drawn-out quake that was amplified through the Cicada's long legs. I slowed as I approached Kirkpatrick's position, not wanting to end up trapped like him. Through the helmet, I could sense the surface yielding slightly with each step, but it did seem to be holding. With each step I took, though, my entire 40 tons was concentrated on the relatively small print of just one of my 3 flanged feet, smaller by far than the enormous footprint of an atlas. Starfire, BattleTech 25 Years of Art and Fiction, by William H. Keith, Jr. Due to market factors including dominance of battlemechs like the Locust, Stinger, and Wasp, along with the modest production lines on Bryant, the number of Cicadas which entered service in the SLDF and various house militias was limited in those early years. What had originally been an advantage for the company being so near Terra became a liability following the Ameris Civil War as the former Terran hegemony planets became frequent targets of raids by house militaries. Everyone wanted their pound of flesh, and though conflict usually helps the balance sheets of arms manufacturers, the caveat on that is if your production lines are on the front lines, things can get messy. Ultimately, the Cicada production line on Bryant became just one of countless other industrial casualties of the First and Second Succession Wars. The number of Cicadas in circulation declined as the centuries passed, but there were moments where it shined. In 2930, a Cretan light recon lance with several Cicadas in it found itself in the less than ideal position of having to defend a city named Tar on Zosha from a Davion advance. The Cretans were able to defend the city for several days, slowing the Davions and causing higher than expected casualties. It was such an unlikely last stand that it was compared to the Battle of the Alamo from Earth's distant past. Standard CDA-2A Cicada was equipped with 2 Magna medium lasers and a single small laser, a somewhat underwhelming arsenal for a medium battlemech, and lacking a knockout punch, which is precisely why the manufacturer, Hartford Co., had developed the 3C variant. In exchange for a lower top speed, this model mounted a Donnell particle projection cannon, a weapon that fired a searingly, blindingly bright nova of blue-white energy that turned even battlemech armor into slag and cinders. A weapon very capable of delivering a knockout punch. The Alexandria Job, Shrapnel Number 15, by Giles Gamage. Two variants of the Cicada were produced by Hartford Co. before the lines were destroyed. The first was a CDA-2B, which debuted in 2840, which had the gall to drop a half-ton of armor so that the center torso small laser could be replaced by a flamer. While I'm the first frog to lean into adding flamers and inferno munitions to battlemechs, leaving a 40-ton battlemech with just 3.5 tons of armor coverage is more reckless than bold. The 2B was sold as an anti-infantry and light vehicle battlemech, but there was little interest in it. The second Cicada variant was the CDA-3C, which was a much more substantial refit, which dropped the engine size down to a 16-ton 280 Fusion engine, which freed up 6.5 tons of mass for additional weaponry. The reduced 711-0 movement speed was a hit, but the more powerful weapons loadout was intended to make that blow a little softer. The additional mass for weaponry was invested in a particle projection cannon set into the right torso along with 2 machine guns split between the legs. Yep, you heard that correctly, the legs. The full ton of machine gun ammunition was stored in the center torso, because of course it was. Short of slapping on an autocannon, don't worry, we'll get to that one, there were few builds that could have wasted the available mass more effectively. The PPC did extend the range and offensive power of the Cicada, but it did require modest heat management, and the minimum range of the PPC forced the Mechwarrior to shift tactics. It's a good thing that by this point the ER large laser was lost tech, or else they'd have gone that route instead of the PPC. Records suggest that very few CDA-3Cs were produced and even fewer survived the First and Second Succession Wars. A few examples were preserved by the Capellans who used them as training mechs at several military academies. Though the Cicada never really had a chance to become as ubiquitous as the other scouting battlemechs, it could still be found across the militaries of the Inner Sphere. Eventually, Free World's defense industries obtained the blueprints and the rights to produce new Cicadas on their Gibson factory lines. Over time, the Cicada became known as a mech primarily seen among units of the Free Worlds League and their allies, though considerable numbers could still be found elsewhere, particularly in the Draconis Combine. Redburn watched the ground crack open. Capellan mechs, Cicadas, sprouted up like nightmare plants in some hideous time-lapse holodocumentary. While Crown was shouting, they had appeared on the north, south, and east sides of the valley rim. Only the west, the direction Major Allard had forbidden, stood safely open. "Move, damn it, move! This isn't a drill! Withdraw west, up the hillside. Sonic, jet out of there!" One armless Cicada thrust its ugly snout in front of Sonic's position and fired its twin medium lasers. Both beams converged on the Stinger's head. Armor melted and ran like wax. Then the beams lanced into the cockpit. Warrior on Guard by Michael A. Stackpole. Free World's defense industries and Gibson Federated battlemechs leapt at the chance to upgrade the Cicada with Helm Core technology, which promised to finally unlock the mech's potential. Engineers pored over the design, sparing little expense in bringing the brand new Cicada to life. The CDA-3M benefited more than most Succession Wars battlemechs, with a full rebuild centered on a Pitman 320 extra light fusion engine, which cut the mass down to just 11.5 tons. This was a huge boon for the mech, which had previously been forced to carry an engine that was half of its overall mass. The 10 single heatsinks were left as they were, but surprisingly, the Cicada's armor coverage remained at 4 tons of standard plate as well. The mass savings from the engine was devoted entirely to the weapon's loadout. Tragically, 10.5 tons were squandered in an Imperator Ultra AC-5 autocannon set into the left torso, along with 1 ton of case-protected ammunition in the right torso. Just as a side note, this past week, CGL announced some changes in how autocannons will function. Until those changes are more firmly established, commentary in situations like this will be based on the existing rule set. If you're watching this video 6 months from now, the appraisal may change. As it stands, 10.5 tons spent on a weapon that is ammo dependent and can either do 5 or 10 damage is an atrocious waste of tonnage. The 2 original standard medium lasers were split between the side torsos, and the original center torso small laser was swapped out for a Magna 200P small pulse laser. While the new loadout was advertised as a nasty way to surprise enemies of the Free Worlds League, that overestimates the value of the upgrade. In practice, this deadlier yet even more fragile Cicada ended up a demonstration of missed opportunities. The culprit behind this crime was the lack of additional armor and the squandering of mass on that Ultra AC-5 autocannon. Alas, the Cicada 3M went into full production, and many of the new machines that didn't end up in the Free Worlds League units were shipped off to the Draconis Combine and Lyran half of the Federated Commonwealth as part of the unified response to the clan invasion. It was reported that the mech speed did help keep it alive in hit-and-run maneuvers against clan forces. A little further down the timeline, many of these new Cicadas saw action in Word of Blake militias. The mighty Federation war machine could be stopped, actually stopped, with the right combination of luck and grit and treachery. All qualities good Capellans possessed in abundance. He sent a half-dozen Thunderstroke LRMs racing toward the wounded Cyclops. Molly Watterson's Vindicator was badly hurt, her PPC lost from the fight, but the Cicada danced and juked, tormenting the Davion general from behind. It was no longer a battle, it was a race. Operation Rat, The Totalitarian Mind. Frontlines Battlecore Anthology by Stephen Mohan, Jr. In 3052, the Free World's defense industries tried again with the CDA-3F variant, which shared the 3M's XL engine and 10 double heatsinks, but went further with the first use of endosteel on a Cicada. Additionally, 6.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor vastly improved the mech's battlefield durability. In comparison, that was nearly twice as much armor coverage as the original 2A. The other notable upgrade to the structure was the addition of 8 jump jets, which finally granted the Cicada a limited ability to mimic its namesake. The 8-12-8 movement profile dramatically improved the mech's ability to be a problem to everyone all the time. The weapons loadout consisted of a pair of standard medium lasers split between the side torsos and an ER-PPC installed into the left torso. This was a far better choice than the Ultra AC-5, as the 3F could run and gun with it at long range without any heat issues and not suffer from any ammunition shortages. While I did give the 3M a lot of crud about going all in with the UAC-5, the ER-PPC was a much more reasonable choice. It has a high utility and does the same damage as the UAC-5 without most of the drawbacks. If you have the choice, go with the 3F over the 3M any day. Just a scant 4 years later, the CDA-3G was introduced, which reinforced the original scouting role of the Cicada with the addition of some new gear. The core of the mech looked very much like the 3F, with the only change being an additional half-ton of ferrofibrous armor, bringing the total to 7 tons. For weaponry, the designers installed an ER large laser in the left torso as the primary damage dealer, though it was backed up by the traditional pair of standard medium lasers split between the side torsos. Finally, a Beagle active probe was set into the right torso, improving the 4G's scouting capabilities. Overall, the Cicada 4G is a solid performer, both in the role as scout as well as a long-range skirmisher with that ER large laser and the movement profile of a light mech. If you're looking for a Cicada nearing its peak form, the 4G is a strong contender. Doze Victor cut loose first, the Gauss rifle that made up the assault machine's right arm, ejecting a large slug that crushed armor plates over the back of the Blackjack. 2 Rangers fired next, lasers and small autocannon gouging more armor from the hapless Blackjack, which was knocked off of its feet under the intense fire. Then the Cicada made its mistake, firing on one of the smaller Ranger machines as it attempted to race past. The remaining Ranger mech and 3 more in the command lance opened fire, 2 PPCs gouging into the Cicada's left leg and cutting it away at the hip joint. Threads of Ambition by Lauren L. Coleman. In 3068, a limited production of the Cicada designated the CDA-3MA was spotted, which used the 3M chassis but swapped out the Ultra AC-5 autocannon for a snub-nosed PPC and additional armor, 8.5 tons of it to be specific. It's unfortunate that this didn't become the standard model, as it's a much better setup than the 3M. Apparently, the 3MA was used as a training battle mech and a demonstration of the new snub-nosed PPC technology. It's worth checking out if you want to play around. Now, if you've gotten to this point, you're either really into the Cicada or you've fallen asleep. Either way, congratulations. In 3070, the Free World's defense industry folks came out with a banger designated the CDA-3P. It returned to a standard structure around a lighter 280XL engine. This slightly slower 711-0 movement profile mech allowed for the use of 8 tons of standard plate armor, as well as the installation of a hefty, heavy particle projection cannon in the left torso. The remaining mass was invested in 4 ER medium lasers, which were set in each side torso and 2 in the center torso. While arguably the most powerful Cicada we've seen so far, the 10 double heat sinks limited the 3P's ability to fire everything unless in the most dire or advantageous circumstances. The heavy PPC is a riot though, you should probably give it a go. Zarek reacted first, snap-firing all 3 of his lasers at the smaller mech. One of his medium lasers slashed an angry scar down the Locust's jutting torso, but the other 2 beams shot wide, as the pirate recovered and danced their small machine to the side. Then, clearly aware they were outgunned in a straight-up fight, the bandit mech spun on its heel and leapt forward into a full sprint, eager to put as much space between it and its larger cousin as possible. "Oh no you don't," Zarek muttered, baring his teeth in a feral snarl as he jammed his throttle bar all the way forward to send his mech off pounding afterward. Acceptable Losses, Shrapnel Number 13, by Adam Neff. Though the Cicada weathered the storm of the succession wars and clan invasion thanks to the stewardship of Free World's defense industries, things got complicated when the Free Worlds League got into bed with the word of Blake. FWDI was thoroughly infiltrated and dominated by Blakeists and their supporters, so when the word of Blake kerfuffle went against them, the company suffered tremendously. Those who were lucky enough to escape the fallout either kept low profiles, retired, or sought new opportunities with other employers. A few ended up working for Andurian Aerotech, which suddenly found itself in possession of the Cicada blueprints and experienced battlemech specialists. The call was made and Andurian established a subsidiary company named Westover Battlemechs, which conveniently was based on, wait for it, Westover. An existing ancient battlemech factory line on the planet was repaired and updated for a brand new Cicada variant that could hopefully compete in the 32nd century battlemech marketplace. The CDA-4A that hit the market in 3150 is one fancy bug. It saw a return to endosteel, the larger extra-light fusion engine, and 7.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor. The 812-0 movement profile could be boosted to 816 in the right moment thanks to the addition of a supercharger in the right torso. After all the other bits and pieces, including 10 double heat sinks, were added, the remaining 12 tons of mass were spent on a trio of fancy lasers. The twin medium variable speed pulse lasers offered a potentially quite painful and more accurate fire at close range, while the medium re-engineered laser in the center torso provided an opportunity to do its 6 damage to a target, ignoring any special protection offered by ferrolamellar, hardened, or reflective armor. All 3 lasers have a max range of 9, limiting the 4A to close-range engagements. Though that's easy to accomplish when you can run your mech at such high speeds. As always, the key to survival for the Cicada is to always be on the move. The 4A's solid armor plating is more forgiving than previous iterations should that lucky shot get through. As is mentioned in the IlClan Rec Guide, light mechs would do well to avoid encountering the Cicada 4A because you wouldn't need to be hit very often by those variable speed pulse lasers before you shuffled the mortal coil. 9 damage at a -3 accuracy boost will ruin your entire day. Olivares was right about the Legion's mechs being unable to stand up to the Rangers. Speed was not enough protection on the sparsely wooded, rolling ground of the valley floor. The fusillade of dozens of missiles engulfed a Cicada pacing on Theodore's left. The bird-like mech crashed to the ground, one leg completely torn away. Before the pockmarked hulk struck down, scintillating energy beams laced a deadly pattern around a Vulcan 50 meters behind Revenant. Heir to the Dragon, by Robert N. Charette. Thanks to a completely unearned sense of pride and overinflated ego, I did take a crack at coming up with my very own totally unofficial and non-canon IlClan era variant for the Cicada. The Primary goal was to maximize movement speed while still providing the mech a hefty punch. The CDA-4A was a template, though I did make some internal changes. The most substantial shift was the installation of an extra light gyro and a swap over to 7.5 tons of reflective armor. The 8-12-8 movement profile would be plenty, but I figured if any battlemech deserved a partial wing, it had to be the Cicada, so I went ahead and slapped one of those on. This pushed the movement speed up to 8-12-10 and added the neat +3 to cooling if the mech has jump jetted in an atmosphere. Of course, once we get where we're going, we want to ruin someone's day, so some weapons were needed. 2 clan-spec medium pulse lasers split between the sides provide a powerful motivation for enemies to run away. They were backed up by a pair of ER medium lasers, also split between the side torsos to fit with the classic Cicada theme. Both types share the same range profile, so working with all 4 of them is a pretty smooth task. While the combined damage of 24 isn't stellar, it sure beats going back to the days of standard medium lasers. Plus, the pulse laser accuracy is terrifying for light battlemechs that aren't coated in reflective armor. Heat generation isn't an issue for the most part thanks to the partial wings cooling effect and the 11th double heatsink. If you'd like to give the Cicada 4MF a try, I've included the classic BattleTech record sheet for it along with the Alpha Strike card in the video notes below. Enjoy! Archer turned to look down the hill as a pair of cicadas broke from cover, firing up in his direction and ripping up the rock formations near the feet of Rhonda's Highlander. The rock exploded like shrapnel in the air. Archer moved in the right and torso twisted the penetrator to keep the assaulting mechs in view. Then he spotted the real threat, not the cicadas. They were too small and too lightly armored. The threat came from another pair, a Tempest and a Vindicator, which had moved in behind the cicadas. As if to reinforce his assessment, Katya piloted her hunchback forward and leveled its deadly autocannon. Call of Duty by Blaine Lee Pardoe. Previously, I postulated that the Cicada was an also-ran MP3 player. I'm not sure that was totally fair, without also explaining that many of the players back in the day were entirely solid and functional. Some even had devoted fan bases who felt the loss when their favorite products were discontinued. The Cicada isn't a bad mech, it's just one that pushes the opportunity cost curve so far in one direction that it can only thrive through additional tech down the timeline. There is no doubt that the Succession Wars variants are rough, but in the right place and time, they were capable of quality performances. But I'm curious what you think. Is the Cicada not worth the effort, or is there a variant and point on the timeline where you think it is a hidden gem? Please let me know in the comments and we'll keep the discussion going. Thanks as always for coming out today. If you think the video deserves it and you want to show your support, the easiest way to do that is to hit the like button, subscribe, and even leave a comment. All of those things make the YouTube algorithm happy. If you want to go one step further, direct support through Ko-fi or a YouTube channel membership is a great way to help make sure that the nonsense keeps flowing. I can't do this without you, and I appreciate it. If you would like to join the nonsense on the Mechfrog Discord channel, we'd love to see you. I've included a link to the server in the video notes. It's the best way to find out what's coming up next week, talk to BattleTech fans, share your awesome mech paint jobs, and otherwise hang out with some pretty awesome people. With that, I'll say have a great week, take care of yourself, and please go out and make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.